Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another tip. And today's is a good one. It has to do with crankbaits. This is a crankbait tip that will generate substantially more bites for you. And it works regardless of crankbait type. So your shallow running cranks, your mid-range cranks, your deep running cranks, this tip works for all crankbaits. And it's something that I truly believe is important and oftentimes misunderstood. And it really comes down to selecting the right crankbait. So that's what I want to do today is talk about the right crankbait selection for the depth that you're fishing. But before I get into it, I do want to remind you guys that if you have not subscribed yet to the channel, please hit that subscriber button. It's a great way to support the channel, and if you watch the videos on somewhat of a regular basis, it's a really good way to be notified of new videos that come out. Also, if you're looking to purchase some tackle, please use the Tackle Warehouse affiliate link that's in the video description. I appreciate those of you who've been using it. It's a really good way to show your support as well. All right, so today's tip is on selecting the right crankbait. Oftentimes what you hear is that you want to select a crankbait that runs at the depth that you're fishing. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not the right thing to do. You want to choose a crankbait that runs either slightly below the depth that you're fishing. So say you're fishing in 15 feet of water, you may want to grab something like this 20.5 Berkeley dredger. This will get down to a little bit deeper of a level, and therefore it's always grinding into the bottom. The key here is if you choose a 15-foot diving crankbait, that bait is probably going to clip the bottom once or twice. It'll make contact with the bottom and you'll get a good deflection here or there. The problem with that is those deflections are your primary points of getting bit. And if you only have one or two on a cast, you're really limiting the number of bites that you're going to get. If you went with a 20.5 deep diving crankbait on a 15-foot ledge, you're going to be grinding the bottom so much more on that cast. For a good probably half of your cast, for sure, you're going to be grinding the bottom. That means you're making contact for over half of your cast versus just one or 2 points along the way if you grabbed a crankbait that dove to the depth that you were fishing. So it's really important to recognize the fact that your strikes are most likely coming when your bait deflects off the bottom. The only way you're going to get those strikes or increase the number of strikes is when you get those deflections. And if you have way more deflections on a long cast versus one or two on that same cast, it's much better off as an angler to be on the bottom for a longer period of time. That's one scenario. The other scenario is to grab a bait that runs slightly less than the depth that you're fishing. So if you're fishing, say, that 15-foot depth, you go with something like the Berkeley Digger 10.5. So this bait gets down to like 10 to 12 foot of water. So it would stay 2, 3, 4 feet above the bottom. Well, why is that important if you're not deflecting off the bottom at that point? Well, there are times of the year, specifically if you're fishing clear water or you're chasing spotted bass or smallmouth, where a crankbait is a great triggering mechanism, but it never comes in contact with the bottom. And the reason for that is the fish are on the bottom looking up, and they're much more willing to come to the surface to strike a bait. Not the surface, but they're coming up a couple feet off the bottom. So if this bait's getting down to 11 or 12 foot and I'm fishing 15 feet of water, it's 3 or 4 feet above their heads, and that's what's going to draw those fish to come up and strike it. Now, I wouldn't recommend just a straight retrieve if I were fishing in that manner. I would be given a lot of burn it back, stop it, burn it back, stop it, and those fish will hit it when you stop it. And that's the same triggering mechanism as when you're choosing a deep diving crankbait that deflects off the bottom. But the key here is oftentimes those fish would rather come up for the bait than bite the bait off the bottom. And if you've got a 15-foot deep diving crankbait that's only hitting the bottom once or twice, but it's staying right at that bottom water level, you're kind of falling in that category where you're really limiting yourself to the number of bites. You'd be much better off going with a bait that runs high or a bait that runs really low and is grinding the bottom. It's something that the top crankbait fishermen out there are doing. They very rarely choose a crankbait that gets down to a specific depth to not make contact. The only thing I can think of where you want something that runs at a specific depth just to kind of tick along is if you're fishing some deep grass where you don't want it to dive into the grass, but you want to just tick it through the tops of some of the stalks of grass. That's something that's really difficult to do, and we'll cover that in another video. But for the meantime, next time you go crankbait fishing, choose a crankbait that either runs deeper than the depth that you're fishing or slightly less than the depth that you're fishing. And I guarantee you, you'll get more strikes. It's pretty simple. It's not rocket science, but it really does make a big difference. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and stay tuned. We have more videos coming out tomorrow.